I was riding my electric motorcycle, and it was a winter day, and it's kind of overcast, and a car started driving in front of me, and I could not believe what was happening in front of my eyes. I hit the car so hard, and I flew over the car 10 feet with my leg like that. And it was the worst pain I've ever been in. I can't even imagine. I can't believe I even survived through that pain. And so in that moment, I felt all my practices there, right at the surface, and it was carrying me through that.
Hello, and welcome to The Art of Lost and Found, a podcast that explores the creative relationship between our inner and outer worlds. It's a creative exploration through stories, insights, resources, and tools to help you intentionally design your life and work. I'm your host, Brooke Eston, also known as the Creative Amplifier. I'm part strategist, part designer, part coach, and part artist. And I'm dedicated to helping fellow creatives bridge the gaps between those big dreams and practical realities. Now let's get into it. In today's episode, I continue my conversation with Rudy Hexter. Rudy is a man of many talents. He's a builder of homes that are designed to facilitate thriving, as well as being a teacher of Qigong and the Life Mandala training. In our last episode, we talked about finding stability and community in the face of isolation, and how inner exploration and spiritual practices provide the spark and fuel for daily life. Today, we explore how this is expressed in the tangible world. After a near-death experience from a motorcycle accident, Rudy had to radically alter his day-to-day life and set aside his self-reliance in order to accept the love and generosity his community offered. With fresh insights and a strong calling, he joined my signature program, Align by Design, where he called in the support he needed right when he needed it to help intentionally shape his path forward. Join us as we explore resilience, creativity, self-expression, and hope, all in the face of adversity. So I feel like what we've been digging into is going deeper and deeper and deeper into that rooting practice that you were referring to. And I'd love to sort of take this also into a direction that is a bit more perhaps tangible is the word that I'm looking for, because we live in a world that requires us to show up for the tangibles as well. And you mentioned building the relationships with the people that you have there in Salt Springs, about how you've been able to be with them and help them through a lot of, challenges that they've had, and be able to celebrate with them on the other side of that. And I'm curious to talk a little bit about your maybe more recent journey in your physical body and the kind of community and people that you needed to show up for you as you were having a very different embodied experience than what you're used to in regards to your accident and that experience. Because, you haven't shared a ton of that in the Align by Design container, nor with me personally, but I imagine that was probably a whole other learning opportunity for you in terms of you being in your body, but it having different capacities and capabilities than you were used to. And then also the need for people to show up and support you in a way that was very tangible. So can you share a little bit about that experience and how that either shifted or evolved or perhaps even reinforced the relationship that you had with yourself in the context of community?
Yeah, the qigong that I'm involved with, the Jingui Golden Shield qigong, has been such a powerful force in my life and has pretty much shaped a lot of the strength that I have right now. And a big part of, Dr. Zhang, one of the things he says, the good things are the bad things. And so there's something that we learned to, when you have something that you're growing with, there's times that, it's like that hero's journey. There's times of like, wow, this is so great. I'm so into this, and then as you start going, you're like, the shit starting to come up, and you start to get resistance and judgment and criticism. And those are the good things, I like to call that the composting. Something's dying, and something's going to grow from that, a new part, a new essence, a new faculty, a new something. And so when I was riding my electric motorcycle, and it was a winter day, and it's kind of overcast, and a car started driving in front of me, and I could not believe what was happening in front of my eyes. And I was going 60, 70 kilometers an hour. I was like, okay, here we go. This is going to be the biggest test of your life. This is happening. There's nothing you can do about this. This is what was going through my head. And then the next thing, I felt this big bang. The next thing I knew, I was laying on the pavement with my knee like to the side, ripped right open. Apparently, my knee got embedded in the side of the car. I hit the car so hard, and I flew over the car 10 feet with my leg like that. And it was the worst pain I've ever been in. I can't even imagine. I can't believe I even survived through that pain. And so in that moment, I felt all my practices there, right at the surface, and it was carrying me through that. I can't even describe that. And I was just sitting with the pain, and I remember like watching this movie, and this lady, she was like, it's really, it's kind of embarrassing that I did watch this movie, but there was something about it. It was great. And she was just like getting into, I forget the name of it, but she was getting into like her highest potential. And she was on this guy's lap, and she had like knives in his hands, and he was in this aggravating pain. And she was just calmly talking to him about how all these things get in the way of really being alive and awake and clear, like all these emotions, all this pain. And so I was lying on there remembering that scene in this movie, and just trying to breathe through it and just stay in that pure presence, and then I was flown to the hospital, and I almost died from loss of blood. I lost so much blood, and then I got the blood transfusion. And I remember like in that moment receiving the energy again. And because I was just kind of like just hardly even there. And then in that moment, I realized that consciousness, this is the most important thing, is consciousness. Everything revolves around that. And so that brought such sweetness and grace into the whole time. And I actually really enjoyed it. There was something about it that I really enjoyed every moment of it. And of course, there was challenging times, and I started getting into a rhythm in the hospital. I had therabands there, and I would just like hook them up to the corner of the bed and put my music on, and I would work out in the hospital, and so just to try to keep it alive. And the community was such a tremendous support, like people I don't even know. It somehow it kind of went viral and just so many people, it was like everybody was talking about it, and people praying for me, and um, Kat really was a big part of that, and just informing people and organizing that, and organizing a GoFundMe. And so I think we raised close to $60,000 through that process. And so that support just brought, again, so much grace into the experience, where we didn't have to worry about money, that we can just, because the claims and everything, it took so long to come through. And then we had to establish like a new road down to my house, because I live in kind of a hard to get place by vehicle. And so there's all these things, and yeah, the community has been incredibly supportive through this, and I'm so grateful for that. And a big part of like that gift that my mom gave me was this ability. She told me, you don't rely on anybody, just do it. Like, don't ask for help, just do it yourself. And the gift was that I became very self-reliant, and creatively I've been able to do things, you know, and creatively make things happen in a way that was easy, and so I've really got accustomed to this. So having that support from the community was a little bit challenging, and but I learned to just really see that where it was coming from, and to deny that love, and that really wanting to help was denying that human nature, so I really opened up to that, and I just really received everyone's love in that way, and in the way that they knew how to express it, you know. So there was a lot of gifts that this accident has given me, and it happened right before I turned 50. And I remember my master's, when he turned 50, he said I could talk to God now. And so I just really felt this, like this potency, like just in my own life, like this coming of age, stepping into a new age, and the freedom that has, and just like we don't have all these like attachments of our identity as much, and we just become more like self-acceptance, accepting. And so I knew like this 50 was going to be a big thing, and I had no idea it was going to be this. And it reminds me of that. I think it was Hafiz. He says, it's like this poem about like God giving him a drop kick and dragging him across the floor while he's kicking and screaming. And at the end of it, he comes out with this big smile on his face, and so it was like this accent was kind of like that, it was a gift on so many levels. And I remember sitting in the hospital asking myself, when I was in this kind of self, kind of like, this is happening to me. It happened around Christmas. Um, just this self importance, and I just like asked myself, who am I under the eternal blue sky? And just really kept looking at it from that perspective of, I'm nothing. This, like, what is this? And I think this is part of our ailment, is that our ego just thinks it's everything. And we just get so stuck in our stories, and it's like, this is everything. It's nothing, and so that just kind of lifts the weight a little bit, and it brings a little bit more ease into the situation on some way. I don't know. It just, so many things would just come like that, and it's just a creative way of meeting the circumstances within our thinking and our feeling, to help carry us through, and to embrace what life is, say yes to what life is giving us, in all the forms. It's beautiful. It's a mystery. And to get rid of this like good or bad, but to just say yes to it, and to explore the gifts and the lessons that it's bringing us.
Yeah. How do you choose what to say yes to when? Because I think a lot of people, especially creative people or people who are in touch with that part of themselves, they want to do everything all at the same time and explore
Mm.
everything. And, a lot of the pathway towards mastery is deciding what not to do, deciding what not to give your time to, right? Something that could be a distraction in one moment could be your medicine in another. How do you feel into how you make choices about where to put your time and energy?
Well, in the Life Mandela training, there's um, a major part of that discipline is the 20%. It's 2 hours of our day, and so before we start our day, we carve out that time for ourselves through meditation, through movement, and then also journaling, and in a way that's coming to the the council table, and it's like before you go, and it's the spring of the day. It's like, okay, what are we planting in the garden today? What are we cultivating? So it's really getting like that stepping back, accessing that playful nature, accessing that deep heart, and what wants to come alive. What am I cultivating today? How am I showing up? What am I showing up for? And just exploring that. And sometimes that could be just like going to the ocean and jumping into the ocean, and just really breaking the pattern, yeah, like working with the elements. And the patterns are the earth, the water, and the fire is like this, like spontaneity, just this creative, like just snap out of it and just open us up to this new energy. And that could just be even just going outside of your door and sitting in the grass, or it doesn't have to be so drastic, but in essence it's finding that creative freshness and that aliveness, and breaking the conditioning of what those patterns, those grooves in the brain and the chemistry bring us in, and opening ourselves for new energies to come in, you know. So that counseling up is just like, yeah, is that playful nature, just seeing life as this, like, yeah, let's play, what wants to come alive, and then you show up for it. And part of that is like, what am I going to eat today? How am I going to honor this body? So when you get really clear like that, you're not going to be stuck down the road, eating junk food. You're going to maybe have packed a lunch or whatever, because you know your pattern, you know your rhythm, and all these things. Yeah.
So what drew you into saying yes and giving that time and focus and discipline and commitment to Align by Design, the program in which you and I got to know each other?
Um, yeah, I that's a good question. Of course, Amir recommended it, and um, I think I've just felt like, with my business, with my dharma, there was pieces that I needed support with, and I felt like by doing Align by Design, it was resonating with me, and I felt like, yeah, let's get that, receive that support, and just another commitment to show up that's going to be supporting this dharmic piece that I wanted, that wants to come alive, in my life.
And how did you find that experience? How was it for you? And has anything shifted in your world because you said yes to that?
It was really good, and parts of it I feel like um I could have received more from it, and the beauty of the way you created it was we can still access that. And so it's interesting, and I witnessed this in the qigong field, and a major part of our growth and evolution is getting really clear and then creating momentum and this calm endurance, and so it's like we were in that field, and then now I'm out of that field, and so there's a forgetting, of something. And so in our qigong training, we have a when you sign up for that, there's a minimum of commitment to 3 practices a week, and what that does is it creates a memory and a continuous showing up. But I remember in that process with you, there was a lot of big ahas and insights, and just simply because of this brewing in this field of dharmic, in our relationships and with with our work and how it comes through. And there was a lot of clarity that came through of the essence of the offering that I would like to bring. Um, yeah, and just working with the circle and the process, the journey that we all went on together, and just so beautiful to see people getting ignited, and also those insights and those clarities and those breakthroughs, and is like taking that step into actualizing their dharma and their work in the world. And it's like, yeah, this I think that's a beautiful continuous process, is like, empowering us to really step into our purpose in life, and to also witness, the challenges that we all share, and we go through it. And that's something I'm realizing, is that everyone goes through self-doubt, everyone goes through these challenges, and I feel like that's important to recognize that as part of the process, rather than just quitting, and just going back to what's comfortable in our job or whatever, working 9 to 5 and for a company, and just like allowing someone else to dictate our to create the container for us, rather than finding our own initiative, and create our own containers. I feel like is a really big piece right now for us as a creators to really access that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways for me too in that container was just how powerful it was for you all to witness each other, right? Because once you speak about the insecurity or the imposter syndrome or the self-doubt, then you can instantly see on the screen other people nodding their heads, raising their hands, raising their eyebrows, like using their bodies to communicate, me too, me too. And when you see other people say, expressing their own vulnerability, then, they say that the cure for shame, the antidote for shame is empathy. Because where there's empathy, there isn't shame. You have nothing to carry the shame anymore, because somebody else is in that experience and acknowledging, yeah, me too. I get it. It's not a judgment. It's not anything like that. And it liberates that space that the guilt and shame had been occupying. And that was the most beautiful thing for me in witnessing the group, was seeing how that kept happening on almost every call. People would share, and then somebody else would say, I feel that also. There's something magical and potent that really happened in the circle that I think, I couldn't have planned for that. I couldn't have created that. That's something that organically reveals itself when you've created a container that's conducive for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's to acknowledge the potency of that medicine for the times that we're in.
Yeah.
It's huge, and I really strongly recommend people to really seek that out, that circle work that aligns with them and resonates with them. And it doesn't have to be, it can just be, if you can't find it, create it yourself. You know, what is it, you know, and hold that space and hold that ground, because it's really important work right now, and it's the tribe reuniting and building tribe, and
Mm.
we, you know, we're stronger together. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had an opportunity to speak to that younger version of yourself, that younger boy who was trying to make sense of all of the variables floating around and crashing into each other in your world, or perhaps there's somebody who can identify with that younger version of Rudy, what would you offer them now from this perspective?
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing that. You know, I am walking with that child continuously, and I'm just offering him just, you know, just playfulness. Like they're just kind of like, let's play today, you know? And just also really holding that child when we're in those situations where it's uncomfortable, and the child wants to run and hide, you know, because that's been a really big part of my pattern in life, and just realizing, like, again, the good things are the bad things, and like, let's stay here, there's medicine here for you, you know. If you keep running from it, we just keep hiding it under the surface, and we can't really free ourselves from those old energies, you know, and how good it feels to be free, and to be like, just to open our wings a little bit more, you know, and just fly, and our hearts, to be free in our hearts, to love more clearly, you know. And it's when I do sweat lodges here, and when we enter into the sweat lodge, you enter in, you bow your head, touch it to the ground, and you say it to all, for all my relations. And so to know, like, you're going in there for all your relations, and we are in relationship, and everything we do, all the work that we do for ourselves, is for all our relationships, for all beings on this planet, you know. And so it's big work. It's really beautiful work, you know, to put that behind you, and to be like, yeah, for those children over there. And I remember Muhammad Ali, when he was the rumble in the jungle, when he was gonna fight, I think it was George Foreman. And you know, he was there. George Foreman was way bigger, faster, and everybody thought Muhammad Ali, he's getting old, and they all thought he was gonna lose that fight. And I remember the interview, you know, he was talking about George Foreman fighting for the fight, for the money. He said, I'm not fighting for the money, I'm fighting for all the African people, and they're all behind me, and that's what's gonna make me win this fight. And he ended up winning that fight. It was beautiful to just see that documentary and that process and that storyline, you know.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, and for reminding me, and I imagine other people listening to this, about that younger version of ourselves not just being in the past, but
Right.
continuing to be with us, you know, and to connect with that on a more regular basis, and to care for the child that needs weren't met, because we all have variations of how we experience that, and to remember that that's still us, that's still in us. I've
Mm.
done quite a bit of inner child work also, because I had a very strong rejection of just children in general. I'll say that. And it took me a while to unpack that and to understand that that was coming from the relationship that I had with my own child self. And in repairing that and remembering that she's still with me, no matter how much I want to put her in the closet, like, she's not going anywhere. She doesn't disappear in the closet. It doesn't get cut off and exists in a different time. Like, to be in continuous relationship with that has been a really important part of my healing and my growth also. So I especially appreciate that answer, because it speaks to me in a deep way.
Part of the process is learning how to parent ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and to guide and direct ourselves. And so that stepping back allows us to come into a deeper intelligence. And from that, when you parent a child, you get it. You work with its interests, you work with its heart, and you're playful, and so it's like inviting it to come and maybe start wrestling with it a little bit, get it to wake up and to feel the forces of life, and then it perks up and it wants to play with you. And so it's not forcing it to go and do that discipline and be like, it's like, yeah, like, this is great. Like, what is it inviting us? Like, what wants to come alive, So just learning how to parent ourselves and to guide and direct ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a part of my journey that took me a long time to accept. But, it unlocks the next levels. The things that we tend to resist the most are the things that, a lot of times we need to happen in order to shift our relationship with it. For me, moving to Spain, I had never lived in a country where there was no separation between adult activities and kids' activities.
Oh, wow.
They're just,
okay.
All the generations are all in the same place. And I also called in a partner who had a child. And so the opportunity presented itself to me, and I reluctantly said, okay, let's do it. And then once I went deeper into that work, I'm like, I remember why I avoided this. Yep.
Uh-huh.
But as you were saying, that learning to be present and that staying with yourself and not self-abandoning, not turning away, not judging, but being able to come from a place of love and connection and use that as the opportunity for integration has been, really transformative for me in my journey also. So I really appreciate you speaking to that so much in this conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our traumas tend to, we can see it. If we have had a traumatic childhood, that gets projected on the children that are in our lives. And I remember I had this boy in my life, and he was this beautiful young, like 4-year-old. I remember me going through stuff, and there was stuff that used to really annoy me about him, And I remember, like, just one day it was raining and I was working. I was just going through stuff, and I did not want him around me because I knew I didn't want to project that anger or that whatever or hurt him in any way. And I was just like, please go, And then I remember, like, I would start crying. I remember just like working and then falling and just like cracking, like cutting my eye open. And I'm just sitting by the river, and he comes out with this piece of aloe vera and just this innocence in his just like his presence. And I just started bawling. It's just something got released. And then the very next day, the things that I was watching him do stuff, and the very things that used to annoy me about him, it was just like, it was so precious. I just saw his innocence and his beauty, And so in that moment, something healed in my inner child there, and it changed my relationship with children. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I cried first. I was like, oh, he's going to cry. Nope, here it comes.
It's
Yeah.
so precious, life, and it just brings us what we need. Just
Hmm.
to trust in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that.
Mm,
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Rudy.
yeah.
This conversation was medicine for me too. I didn't even know that I needed it, but clearly I did.
Mm, yeah. Such a treat. Thank you for all what you're doing and what you're bringing in the world. It is medicine for all of us. And we're in a really deep transitional time right now. And I feel like you're really opening up these doors for people to receive, and to explore and to inquire. And you're such a loving guide in that way. And thank you for saying yes.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for anyone who this resonated deeply with, and you know, perhaps me if I was listening, where can we follow your journey or be part of your circle or your work or your energy? Where would someone perhaps not on Salt Spring Island be able to connect with you?
I guess Facebook could be something right now. I'm in a process of building a website. I think it's the art of Asha Life Mandela Training,
Mm-hmm.
and the domain name. I think we're gonna try to get that. I'm not. We might already have gotten it. I think I have 3 or 4 domain names, and it's just that, like, just getting really clear what wants to come through, and sometimes it's a bit of a process. But yeah, those are two ways. Facebook maybe might be the easiest way to get in touch with me right now.
Great. Thank you so much for showing up so fully and being so present and offering so much to this conversation.
Yeah, it was easy.
I have one more kind of question out of curiosity. Is what's the relationship like now with both your mom and with this man, the man you were speaking about in Vancouver?
Well, my relationship with my mom has been such an interesting evolution. And, like from that childhood moment where I felt a witch put her in a closet, losing that love for her and just having anger and these things. And then eventually in my early 30s, coming to a place of really accepting her and seeing and celebrating, like, wow, you did that with me. That was
Mm.
amazing, considering where you came from.
Yeah.
And then she ended up passing away. She
Mm.
she died, and I was there, and it was like I shed a few tears, but it didn't really affect me that much.
Mm.
Um, and it was beautiful when she passed. She left with a big smile on her face, like she
Oh,
she met something on the other side, and it was beautiful.
oh
And that was a
wow.
gift she left us, right? And
Yeah.
then later, a couple of years after that, she came to me in a dream on a
Mm.
boat, and she took me out, and we had time, and she revealed her pure essence to me, and there was so much
Mm.
love. I felt that love that I haven't felt for her, in a
Oh
long, long,
wow.
long time. And then she brought me back to the shore, um, and she was saying goodbye, and I just started bawling. I just started crying.
Yeah.
And so those were the deep, that inner child. Those were the tears
Mm-hmm.
of seeing my mother again and feeling her love.
Mm.
And so that was a beautiful gift she gave me, to as she moved on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then Bob, he he continues. I need to get back in touch with him. We've been off and on, and I would like to check in with him again. He later on became a Christian, and our relationship was always just really wonderful. Always that love was always there.
Well, thank you again so much for this. I'm really appreciative of your time and presence and energy. I don't take it for granted.
Yeah, likewise, it was really precious.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Art of Lost and Found podcast. I hope that you are feeling inspired and empowered to go forth and explore your curiosity and creativity. As always, if you want any more information about any of our guests or the show notes or anything we discussed on today's episode, you can head over to www.brookeeston.com/podcast. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.